The Ark of God returned. In this story, you really see the 5 cities of the Philistines. These were 5 city-states. Each had its own king, but these kings were equal, and they ruled the Philistines together. Little side note, these were actually Canaanite cities. When the sea people, the Philistines, came in and they destroyed all 5, then they built on top of them the cities that they themselves ruled. Well, they destroyed the Canaanite cities, but they adopted their god. Dagon was not a sea people god, but the Philistines that lived here took him on. In the temple of this god, there was a place where this idol could stand, and then there was a little place where a foreign idol could come in. And what they did, this was a defeated prisoner of Dagon. It was just like the kings. When they conquered another kingdom, sometimes they would take the king alive and bring him back to the Philistine cities, and there they put him on display as inferior, subordinate, and subject to further humiliation. Well, that's what they were doing here. This was a prisoner of Dagon, on display, inferior, and open to further humiliation. Well, God would have none of it. He showed right away that it was Dagon who was inferior and submissive. But then they came in and found that Dagon's head and hands were missing. That's just not an accident of the fall. That was on purpose. When the kings of the Philistines brought in another king and to humiliate him, one of the other things they could do is they could take the king and cut off his head and then cut off his hands. Cutting him off his head says, this is indication this man is dead and his kingdom is dead. By cutting off his hands shows that he's powerless. So God did the same thing. Dagon's dead and powerless. Well, that was just the beginning of their problems. Then come the mice. The Hebrew word right here could mean rats. And then the tumors. And again, the Hebrew word could mean boils. With the rats and the boils, this could be an indication of the bubonic plague. Interesting enough that there's nowhere in history that the plague was in the Middle East before this time. But there's also a slight indication that it didn't exist anywhere before this time. Now, medical historians will disagree on that. And this is kind of a Walshite thing right here. But just to me, it's interesting that this could be the beginning of that plague that would be around for centuries and centuries. Well, when the Philistine priests figured out what they ought to do, they put the Ark of God on a cart, a couple of cows, sent them back to Israel. The trip that those cows took was up the Sorek Valley, the very same valley where Samson for the next 20 years would be involved with. It was about a 9-mile journey. And they came up to Beth-Shemesh at the top of this valley. Beth-Shemesh is one of the places that we take people when we go to Israel. We love going there because it's a huge tell up at the top of this valley. And from that location, we tell all of the Samson stories as we're actually looking on the valley where it all happened. But also we tell this story. And you can almost see as you're telling the story, seeing this cart around the corner, way down at the bottom, and see it moving up, coming to this very location right here. Well, the Philistines, after they see everything's taken care of, they go home. And symbolically, they really do go home. They had been on the march to take over the mountain area, to take over the rest of Israel, just to take over everything. They already had all of the fertile areas around about, but they were after the mountains. At this point right here, they said, no, I think we'll be content. This God of Israel, we don't want to upset him too much. After all, remember, Dagon was the god of storm and the god of grain. What would the God of Israel do to us if we once again violated their area? So this stops this whole area. Also, the men of Beth-Shemesh open up the top of the ark and they look inside, and God strikes them dead. Well, this does it for the people of Israel. They had already were shaken up the fact that God's presence was taken away from them. Then they heard about all these things that happened down in the area of the Philistines. And now to have the people of this city judged right there. This was not God was not a God that you should take for granted. He was a powerful God. They no longer wanted God on their side. They wanted to be on God's side. And this starts, as you look at 1 Samuel chapter 7, verse 2, it says this starts about a 20-year period of them coming back to God. Now, in your Bible, you might want to take a pencil and take a little note right there. In that verse 2, chapter 7, verse 2, where it says 20 years, that's the exact same time period that Samson is the judge over southwest Israel. They take the Ark of God to a town called Kiriath Jearim. Kiriath Jearim is one of the 3 locations that they feel that maybe Emmaus could be at. We take people there. It's a beautiful sight. And we celebrate the story of the walk to Emmaus right there. But if you get a chance to go, there is a particular Catholic church there that has a steeple that you need to take a look at. It shows the Ark of God with Mary standing on top. The symbolism is that both carried God. It stays in this city until King David comes and starts that journey taking the Ark of God to Jerusalem. Well, come back when we give you more insights on the story.